Well. Welcome back, everyone, to another Quick Flips episode. Damian and Matt here with you today. We had another big time reliever on the market sign. That is Robert Suarez signs a 3-year, $45 million deal with the Atlanta Braves. So, of course, we had to have Matt on here because what kind of guy would miss an episode about his team signing a good relief pitcher this offseason? Couldn't be me, right?
That's
Couldn't be
right.
me.
That's right. We just didn't want to hear you talk about for 30 minutes about Edwin Diaz, so
I mean,
nobody
hey,
wants to hear that.
why not? But yeah, we don't want to hear you talk about Robert Suarez for 30 minutes, so we'll try and keep it to 15 minutes or so over here. But looking at our Google sheet, right, with all of our predictions, I had Robert Suarez going to the Cubs 2 for 25, 12 and a half. We've talked miraculously. I've really undershot the market this year. David had him going to the Angels 2 for 26. Matt had him going to the Dodgers, but for 3 for 45. So you hit the years and the mark, the dollar amount right on the head there. You just had him going to the wrong team. But this is an interesting deal, too, because Robert Suarez was a team that a lot of teams were pivoting to after Edwin Diaz had signed. You had heard, even beforehand, the Dodgers were apparently in on him, the Mets, the Jays. Not an inkling did we have the Braves on that radar at all, which is typical Braves fashion. Just don't be linked to anyone. And then Jeff Passan beat the press release this time. So shout out to Jeff Passan there. But Robert Suarez signs with the Braves as a setup arm to Raisel Iglesias, who they already signed earlier this offseason. So, Matt, obviously this is your team. You know Iglesias very well. Suarez coming in has that closer experience, but also has the experience of being a setup guy. So how do you envision that back end kind of working there with the Braves? And are you happy that this 3-year for $45 million deal?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of thoughts on this. Kind of coming into the offseason, you mentioned our predictions. I'd predicted Edwin Diaz to the Braves, and the reason for that was just because I knew that the Braves were about to spend on bullpen. Alex Anthopoulos always spends on bullpen. Iglesias' long-term deal came off the books, and the Braves bullpen, especially early in the season, really struggled in the back end last year. That part of that was Iglesias had a really bad first half before turning it around, but there was some struggles in the bullpen, and I think Alex Anthopoulos came into this offseason thinking we can't let that happen again in the bullpen. So, he obviously went out and made the Iglesias deal, bring him back after his phenomenal second half of the season. And here's Robert Suarez they're bringing in, and Robert Suarez had the best year of his career last year. I'm not sure if it was by ERA, but his swing and miss rate was up more than it was the highest it's been. His walk rate was down over his previous couple of years. He's a really high fastball guy, and he's been pretty successful in San Diego. I think he's probably going to come in and fill in as a setup guy. More than anything else. I think Iglesias probably closes just because, Iglesias has been the Braves closer for the last 3 years. I do think Iglesias is willing to be a setup man. I mean, when the Braves originally traded for him, Will Smith was still closing.
Right.
And, and Iglesias was totally willing to come in and be a setup guy. So I'm definitely, or maybe actually, I believe that was Kenley Jansen that was closing that year when they traded for Iglesias, not Will Smith. But either way, I think Suarez is very good as a setup guy. He's going to definitely add to the back end of this bullpen that's starting to look really strong. You've also got Dylan Lee and Aaron Bummer from the left side who have a lot of talent, and Dylan Lee was awesome last year. There's a little bit of depth there. They signed Joel Payamps as well a couple weeks ago. So this bullpen's starting to stack up pretty well. And then the 3 for 45 thing, I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
That's $15 million a year. That's real money. I think the Braves have a lot of money to spend this offseason, but I'm not. I like Suarez. I think he's good. He's going to help the Braves in 2025 and 2026. It's going to be a big improvement over what we had been running out there as setup guys. Right. I think he's better than Pierce Johnson in the 8th inning. But the thing is that Suarez is in his mid-30s, and his track record is fairly short. And that really high fastball rate profile just worries me just a little bit, because if that velocity dips to touch, that swing and miss dips to touch, this is a guy that has some bust potential on this deal. and 15 million is not something you want to just throw away if you're the Braves and you've got all these long-term contracts on the books, and they're pretty. And the Braves are willing to spend, but they're pretty there is some limitation when it comes to the luxury tax, especially when it comes to losing draft picks in the luxury tax. So they reset that threshold last year. I think they feel pretty good about this. But I mean, I like this. I like the deal. I mean, I'm glad that Robert Suarez is being added to the Braves bullpen. And I mean, I thought it was kind of funny that they just basically stole him from the Mets too, which is always fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, we heard that was the pivot for the Mets, right? Was Robert Suarez at the time, and then he obviously signs with the Braves here. I think the one thing that is going to be interesting to see is Robert Suarez was really aided by Petco Park.
Yeah.
Especially last year. You look at the stats: a 2.31 ERA at home, a 3.82 on the road. A batting average of 141 at home, 246 on the road. And then even look at the peripherals a little bit, a 193 FIP at home, a 408 FIP on the road. Even the K numbers, almost over 11.5 Ks per nine at home, under 7.5 on the road.
Yeah.
That's going to be very interesting to see how getting out of a very pitcher-friendly ballpark in Petco. Not saying that what Truist is here or there, but just going to another ballpark that isn't one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in baseball, how that aids him or hurts him this next year. Obviously, you said you didn't love the money, and I think this has been a big comparison today, through social media and that. Would you rather have the Robert Suarez contract or the Edwin Diaz contract? Knowing both got 3 years, Edwin Diaz is 31, Robert Suarez is going to be 35, but I think 15 mil AAV to 23.
I'm going to give you a non-answer and then an answer. I think it depends on what they do the rest of the offseason. The difference in those deals is about $8 million of AAV. That can buy you a pretty good middle reliever.
Yep.
That's about what Pierce Johnson is getting, I believe. That could
Bill
buy
Maton
you a really
got
good
7.
Yeah, it could buy you a really good bench bat. So there's a lot that you can do. You can do with that 7 million, and then or 7 to 8 million, and then also the Braves. That could allow the Braves to make a big signing too.
I guess here's the way to put it. Really, would you rather have Robert Suarez, and Mike Yastrzemski or Edwin Diaz? That's kind of it's a little bit 2 million more extra, but
yeah, I think in a vacuum, if just for the free agent market, I would choose the Edwin Diaz deal. I feel a lot safer that Edwin Diaz is going to be really good the next 3 years. I don't feel that way about Robert Suarez, although I think he can be really good the next 3 years. I think it's a little bit riskier. Yeah. But I guess we haven't talked about Mike Yastrzemski yet. I think that's a great signing by the Braves. By the way, that is Alex Anthopoulos is going to bring in a guy that's a perfect fit for the Braves and for the Truist Park type of deal. But I think I would definitely take the little bit of flexibility when it comes to being able to bring in a guy like that. And then if of course, you're kind of looking at, Braves are still trying to sign a shortstop. They're still trying to sign a starting pitcher. That $8 million could go a long way toward, bringing that, toward bringing one of those guys in. So
does the extra savings here allow you to re-sign Ha-Seong Kim?
Ha-Seong Kim, or even,
there's not much else unless you're going to do Bo, but Bo's a little too more expensive.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be Bo. But there's a few trade candidates out there. Nico Horner is one that's been rumored a little bit the last couple of days as a trade candidate. Everyone's talking about Corey Seager being traded. I don't think he's going to get traded. But, I think if he were to get traded, the Braves would be in on him. And I think that, and also starting pitching, the Braves have been very aggressive in looking at the starting pitching market this offseason too. They don't want to get into a situation like last year where midway through the season they had the best rotation, one of the best rotations in baseball, and then everyone got hurt and they had nobody left and were awful. I mean, we had Carlos Carrasco starting games in September. So I think that there's a lot of moves yet to be made for the Braves. So that savings on this deal with Suarez, I think, does help that. And then, and like I said, I thought the Mike Yastrzemski deal was pretty good too. And that money spread out pretty light, especially with that he's got a 3rd-year club option on that. So I definitely liked that deal too. But there's a lot of work left to be done for the Braves in order to kind of get back to their 2022, 2023 type of potential.
Right. So we've talked about it from the Braves perspective. Real quick, let's talk about it from the Padres perspective. Losing Robert Suarez, I think, was basically a foregone conclusion going into this offseason. They kind of hedged their bets with the whole Mason Miller trade this last trade deadline. Now it does seem like the reports are they're going to keep him as a relief pitcher, and not put him to be a closer, or not put him as a starting pitcher at least. So they don't seem like they have a ton of money to work with, right? Obviously, they're starting pitching. If you look at it at the moment, it's Nick Pivetta, Joe Musgrove, Randy Vasquez, JP Sears, and Kyle Hart. Doesn't seem like a great starting pitching staff. Now their bullpen. You still have Mason Miller, Adrian Morahone, Jeremiah Estrada. Still have some pretty solid pieces there. You probably get Jason Adam back at some point this year as well, who's very good for you. So you would imagine that the Padres would focus to the starting pitching side a little bit here. Maybe you look at an outfielder or so too, but you think that's where they mainly try to focus from now on is the starting pitching market?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the Padres are a team right now with their financial situation. They do not want to spend money on bullpen. That's throwing money into an area of the team that is less valuable. It is important if you're going to win the World Series to have a really good bullpen, but it's also a lot easier to build your bullpen out of guys that you find on the scrap heap, like the Padres have done for the most part. Robert Suarez, when they brought him in, that was a guy off the scrap heap. Jeremiah Estrada had been DFA'd by the Cubs. Morahone was, I believe, a failed starting pitcher prospect. Yep. Like they have been able to identify and find relievers and good relievers that they off the scrap heap. So I think if they're going to bring in a signing, I think the most likely thing for them is to make a trade of some kind that maybe they can pay down some money, give up whatever prospects they might have left. But I think if they do add money, add payroll at some point, make a signing, it'll be in the starting rotation.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that market lies, because like we said, they don't have much money. They're going to have to kind of get creative like they did with the Nick Pivetta deal last year, or even the Kyle Hart deal. Get somebody that maybe, isn't really out there or talked about much. Maybe their market collapses and they're able to kind of get in on a cheaper deal at that point.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe somebody like a Herman Marquez, get him out of Coors and see what happens type thing, or
pitching that ballpark would be great for him.
Yeah, or Alek Manoah, who the Braves brought in into the season and non-tendered.
He already went to the Angels.
That's right. You're right. I totally blanked on that. But that profile of pitcher though.
Like a bounce back. Could you go get like a Dustin May? Right? Like
Dustin May is definitely. Is Walker Buehler still signed?
He's a free agent.
Yeah, so Walker Buehler's another one. I mean, maybe somebody
might
like
get
that.
More, but yeah, it's going to be that type of pitcher. Someone who either is on a bounce back or something like that. You're not going to get a very big established guy with the money they're shopping in. Now, if they have some newfound money, maybe they trade off some pieces or something, maybe trade a Jake Cronenworth, open up some more money. That maybe opens you up into the, more upper tier, like a Lucas Giolito, or, maybe they do a Brad Keller, like, hey, you can start, and then maybe if it doesn't work, you can go to the bullpen type thing from there. So,
yeah, and just to kind of add to that, I think there's a chance the Padres make some really big moves. Their predicament is that they have guys signed long term that are aging and are very expensive, like Manny Machado, and Yu Darvish is one that's got like 4 years left on his contract, or 3 years or something, that's already 40. You've got Xander Bogaerts. You mentioned Jake Cronenworth is around 30. Like, they have a lot of guys, with the exception of Fernando Tatis Jr. and Jackson Merrill, who are both still pretty young. They have a lot of guys who are aging and own big contracts. So I don't know exactly how they're going to be able to get out of that predicament. So I think the most likely thing is they might just throw as much as they can at 1 year deals, bounce back guys like we're talking about, and see what they can do with that.
Yeah, that's going to be the way they have to do it. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But thank you guys for tuning in to this Quick Flips episode. If you didn't check out the college football episode that dropped this morning, go check that out. There was some wild stuff talking about the college football playoff and that stuff on over there.
Yeah, I was going to say I still need to. I need to watch that. College football yesterday was wild, man. It was wild.
It was wild. So go check that out. Don't forget to drop a like, comment, subscribe on this video. Let us know what you think about Robert Suarez to the Braves and who the Padres should go after. And if there's any more breaking news, we'll come back for another Quick Flips episode. If not, we'll catch you guys back Monday for a recap of the winter meetings week. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys back then.